My number two film is actually another Stanley Kubrick film. I couldn't help but put two on the same list. So hopefully people aren't sick of him already. But this film is Paths of Glory from 1957. Again, directed by Kubrick, starring Kirk Douglas. The plot summary from IMDb: after refusing to attack an enemy position, a general accuses soldiers of cowardice, and their commanding officer must defend them. And that a little more context in that too, in case folks haven't heard of this film. This is a film set during World War I, and Kirk Douglas plays a French soldier. So it's from the perspective of the French military, and they're trying to attack a German position, and the soldiers basically refuse to attack, and then they get prosecuted in criminal military court, essentially, for refusing to obey orders. So give a little context around that one, because I think this film, while it is I think Kubrick's first masterpiece, it's not as well known as some of his other films. And for me, this film, I saw it for the first time in college, a little late in my Kubrick exploration. And it really resonated on me because it, for the first time, helped show to me that war is really a reflection of class divisions in society. And it is not really a thing that unites everyone around one flag. There are still those very strong divisions between the ruling class, in this film exemplified through the officers, and then the working class or middle class or lower classes, however you want to call it, represented by the soldiers. And I never really thought of war like that before. And this film, for the first time, made me say, oh, wow, like this is just another extension of, the class war that is going on in the background too. So before getting into too much more of that, had you seen this film before, and what were your thoughts on it?
No, I hadn't seen it. So this was a really great way for me
Oh,
to,
nice. Okay.
continue my Kubrick exploration.
Yeah.
This movie blew me away. This is a real masterpiece. So I was very happy to, and I would even correct myself, and I saved that for this time, which is that this is like beautifully performed across the board by every single person that's in the movie. So yeah, Kubrick knows what he's doing. That
Yeah.
little old chap.
He knew his way around a movie set and movie camera.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah,
And
again,
with
just
actors. I'm
exactly.
speaking
Yeah.
about the actors part specifically. Those
Okay,
things
okay.
I always knew.
Well,
Yeah.
he definitely had his way around the actors in this movie, if you know what I'm saying, because his wife was the singer at the end. He met her on the set of this and ended up marrying her for 50 years.
Oh,
So he definitely knew his way around actors a little bit on this
I
movie,
did not know that. Wow, that's an amazing scene.
Yeah.
It's interesting you say that about the class and the hierarchy. I guess I always knew that, sort of
Oh,
growing
right.
up in that
Right.
atmosphere of, like, you definitely have a very different life and the way you're treated if you're an officer's family and a senior
Mm,
officer's family versus if you're somebody lower on the ranks. And in fact, this used to be my number one thing about, as at least as a teenager, of why I didn't want to be involved in any of that, because the lines of class and almost sort of the sycophancy and such that came with it, with all these ceremonies and parades and rules
mm,
and things, just felt very stifling and just
mm,
unnecessary to me. That is, if the main purpose of this is to protect the people and the country, why are we spending all this time in all the shenanigans, which are
mm,
all just to, you know preserve the class hierarchy of this whole ecosystem? But then, as I get older, again, not condoning it in any way, but more like, without that, this system will totally fall apart
in the military.
also
Yeah, right, for
in the
sure.
military.
Yes, right.
Because it's
Hmm.
such a, I mean, how do you even justify, like we've been talking, for somebody to leave their family and their home with no real training, no real skill, to show up and basically kill people and know that you're going to get killed as well?
Right,
How do you
right.
motivate yourself to do that? And of course, there is, patriotism and all of those things.
Hmm.
But a big part of that is this ecosystem of class and hierarchy. Like, without that, this doesn't work. There has to be somebody calling the shots in a
Hmm.
brutal kind of way, and everybody else sort of blindly following it. And it's obviously, there's a lot of great nuance there of like leadership and camaraderie and motivation and what have you, but there's a lot of other stuff at play too. So I think this movie just does an amazing job at, in a very nuanced way, showing all of that.
Hmm.
And yeah, Kirk Douglas and his cause and the court martial of it all is just incredible. And especially the other general who at one point orders his own people to shoot his own people.
Right. Because just to get them to move, because
Oh
they
my
weren't moving.
goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that right there sort of blows it all out of the ballpark in terms of who is this for?
Right.
You're ready to kill your own people. Isn't the whole point to protect your own people? So
Right. Actually, his whole motivation, there's a great in the opening scenes when the higher general is saying, "Hey, we have this mission. It's to attack this
yeah,
crazy German position." He's like, "You know what? I don't know. My men are going to die. I don't want to do this." And he's like, "Well,"
yeah,
the other guy's like, "Well, there's a promotion in it for you though if you do
right.
this." And he's like, "Oh, okay. Well then, yeah, let's do. I think my men can do it." It's just he's
Yeah,
very self motivated as the ruling class typically are, where all it is about his own ascension up the throne. And again, I definitely agree with you about, one of the reasons why the military never looked good to me, because I don't necessarily like hierarchy myself, but I do believe in that respect you need that. You have to have a hierarchy in a sense of order in a military. What I think this movie, or at least how I view it as, is it's like using the military as a microcosm for the entire of society, and it's sort of
right.
showing that this is how we act even outside of the military. And then that's sort of what, at least I view this film's attacking more than anything else than the hierarchy in the military, which I agree with you. You need that. If you don't have that, an undisciplined military is not going to help you in any way, shape, or form. But that doesn't mean that
No,
has to translate to how we run the whole rest of our society.
exactly, exactly. And the movie just does such an amazing job at showing that.
Mm-hmm.
I actually didn't know that the bulk of this movie is actually not on the battlefield. I just assumed that this will be some like really brutal, battle movie, but it's not, which was amazing. And then, like masterpieces and great directors, like none of
Mm-hmm.
this is tied in a pretty little bow. You keep seeing layers and layers, like the
Yeah.
other top ranking general who ends up seemingly getting the problem as
Mm-hmm.
Kirk Douglas approaches him and such. But that final sort of breakfast scene or whatever meal they're having or he's having, and the final conversation is just so revealing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and they're almost like celebrating the people who are court-martialed and shot. And
Exactly.
that was still a shock to me because I kept waiting that, there'll be an announcement at the very end that they'll say, oh, no, 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 we're not going to go through this,
Mm-hmm.
But of
Mm-hmm.
course, they go through it, and then it's just like another day. They're
Right.
just celebrating this.
Mm-hmm.
And on the heels of that, Kirk Douglas, a little bit later, is offered a promotion
Right.
because, and that sort of is the system as we were just talking. And
Right.
then all of this happens, and then the song by Kubrick's wife that I didn't know
Mm-hmm.
about until this moment is singing, and that scene is also so powerful. Of first they are kind of, lewd and rude and kind of booing her, but also, kind of cheering her at her own expense. But then there's this whole moment of all the soldiers just sort of feeling that, oh, something really bad has happened here.
Mm-hmm.
And in some ways, looking at her crying, being put in this uncomfortable situation, is a reflection of their own lives, and they are sort of united in this whole aspect of being helpless, really.
Exactly. Yeah, just to unpack that scene a little bit more too for folks who
Yeah.
who haven't seen it. It's at a restaurant bar, like there's all these French soldiers there, really rambunctious, and they bring in
Hmm.
essentially like a captive German barmaid. Like she's
Yeah.
not doesn't want to be there. She's crying. She's forced
Yeah.
then to sing. And when she sings this folk song, I sort of view that as, okay, here's again a member of the lower class on the enemy singing a folk song, which is again associated with more of like the lower and working classes. They're the ones who sing the folk songs, and then all the rest of these soldiers all of a sudden feel a kinship. And I view that as a
Hmm.
class kinship. It's like, oh, there's also the working class on the other side. On the German side, we can unite with them because we're actually all the same. The real enemies are the commanders and the ruling class and the people that kind of push them into this situation. At least maybe that's too much of a class reductionist reading of the ending. I know a lot of people interpret the ending in very many different ways. Of it's a depressing ending, it's a happy ending, but I sort of see it as an ending of like solidarity amongst both of
I view that
the two
too.
sides
Yeah.
of the war.
Class is a part of it, but I think to me it's more about just people who are helpless. Like her situation and their situation is actually not that different. They just
Right.
lost three of their men,
Mm-hmm.
you know, for no fault of their own. And they know at the back of their minds that war isn't over after this, whatever weird celebration that we are in, which is not a celebration, by the way.
Right.
We have to pick up our stuff and go do this all over again. So I think there's a class thing, but there's also a situational, circumstantial solidarity that we are all just helpless in this. And then Kirk Douglas's character is an interesting midpoint, right? That he is part of the ruling class,
right,
in some ways.
He is. He's an officer. Yeah.
He's an officer, but I think there's nuance there. And this is why this movie is not one-dimensional like the other one, because you show here's somebody who is of that class, but sees the truth and has a heart and actually cares about his people and is willing to sacrifice his own career, his own motivations as much as possible.
His own life. He offers up at one point. He says, "Kill me instead of these souls." And they're like, "Oh no, this is not for officers. We can't punish officers. We have to punish the grunts, the soldiers." So, and that great moment too, you talked about when they had that dinner scene at the end, when the general basically says, "Oh, I thought you get promotion. I thought this is why you were doing this in the first place." And Douglas is like, "Wait a second. No. I was doing this because I'm trying to care about my men. I don't care about my promotion." And the general's actually mad at him more at that point. And in the entire movie, it's like, wait a second, like, you're not in this just to climb the ladder like the rest of us one percenters. Like, what's going on here? Like, you're then get out of here. Like, I don't like you anymore because you're not just, throwing your soldiers, into the fire just to move your career forward. But the Kirk Douglas character is so fascinating in this movie, and just he does fantastic performance.
Great performance.
Just in the war scene. Yeah, it's not a big war scene, but there is a scene in the beginning, just so well shot. And just epic and just incredible. I expected
right from this movie, but I think what really caught me by surprise was the nuance of it and the storytelling and the emotionality at every single point. This movie could be made today, honestly.
Agreed.
Not just as like technical brilliance, but also for the way it handles emotionality and storytelling, those aspects as well. But yeah, I think Kirk Douglas's character is critical, because if you remove him, this movie becomes one note.
Exactly.
It's about, lower class versus upper class. You need, because this is what makes it truthful, because they're good people trying to do their best no matter where they might be. And they also show the quote unquote soldier, lower class, the guy who's kind of a coward.
Right.
You show that too. Like, not everybody is gallant. Not everybody is sort of there for the right reasons. So it's such a three-dimensional picture of humanity, which is amazing, I thought. And then of course Kirk Douglas has to go fight as well after all of this. And that's how the movie ends. I kept waiting, that is he going to just walk away or quit? But that's another commentary, that you actually can't quit either. Where are you going to go? I don't think he's not going to get the promotion, but he has to fight just whatever he has after all of this, with the same people above and below. Right.
And whether that's cowardice or what, like, he is just, I guess, reserved to,
it's commitment. This is what's going on. I think it's sense of duty as well, but also no choice.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, he could have ran away, I guess, right? I mean, it depends on like duty to what and at the expense of what. But clearly we don't really know a lot about his backstory in terms of why he's fighting anyway, which, I mean, that was a war that was heavily propagandized on both sides. And I'm sure very easy to get swept up in that. But I think that what makes his character interesting, that he is sort of, like, look, like, I know I'm sending these guys back out to die again. The last line is, "Oh, you going out to the front tomorrow?" And he said, don't tell him now. But he basically walking away knowing that probably everyone in that restaurant's going to be dead the next day. But, he can only try to protect his men. I think that's sort of where it comes down to with him. Like, he just wants to protect his guys. And that's the best he can do in the situation.
That's the best he can do. Exactly. What a great movie.
Yeah, definitely recommend for folks who haven't seen this one. I think it is Kubrick's first true masterpiece. I came to it a little later in my exploration of Kubrick. It's not as well known as Strangelove or Clockwork Orange or 2001 or Full Metal Jacket, but it's definitely in that pantheon, in my opinion. So I'm glad you saw it. So. Hey there, it's Alex. If you like the review and discussion Karan and I just had, make sure you subscribe to our channel, Movies That Shaped Us, to get full episodes. Every other Wednesday, Karan and I cover a topic around important people, places, events, and moments in our lives, and then explore it through 3 of our favorite movies. Subscribe right now, or follow our podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts via the link in the description below. Hope you join us for the journey.